Hi everyone. Welcome once again to the lectures of this self-knowledge course. In today's lecture we will begin a study that will cover this and the next conference, in which we will be talking in detail about what is commonly known as hell, or the inferior dimensions of planet Earth. These inferior dimensions are subdivided into 9 circles known as the Dante's circles. Today we will study the first 5 in detail, and in the next conference we will be looking at the last 4. Unlike the 9th lecture of the Phase A, where we studied the 9 Dante's circles of our inner world, in the present we refer to the infradimensions of planet Earth. Therefore, we will be talking about the process that the spark goes through every time it exhausts the 108 opportunities it has with human physical body in each cycle, without deciding in one of those existences to awaken its consciousness. This involutionary process or passage through the infradimensions of the planet is a totally necessary step in the wheel, and it is a liberating process. Since a spark whose seminal envelope has become so dark due to the constant creation of so many psychological defects, if it does not voluntarily do the work to free itself from these, the ego leads it to the lowest levels of degeneration, and to lose even the slightest spiritual aspiration, plunging it completely into materialism and perversity. For this reason, this limit is set, in which, by a mechanical law, nature takes charge of the liberation of all these essences during the hard passage through the 9 circles in which the infradimensions are divided. And in each circle, certain specific types of psychological eyes are purged, paying in turn with pain all the karma that each one has generated. Until at the end of this process, the completely clean spark comes out, with 3% of consciousness and 97% of innocent and catchable essence, to start a new turn in the wheel of samsara, a new opportunity to create a soul. In this passage through the involutionary process, the spark physically goes through different bodies of involutionary animals, then involutionary plants, and finally involutionary minerals. While the contaminated essence or psyche goes through each of these 9 circles, that are known as the 9 Dante's circles. Since Master Dante Alighieri, in his Divine Comedy, recounted what he astrally experienced guided by his guru Virgilio, who showed him how is the process that the different souls go through involution in the bowels of the planet. All of us should investigate this through a conscious astral projection. So, we are going to study each of these circles so that we understand this process, and hopefully this study will help us to reflect on the importance of deciding to voluntarily eliminate these psychological defects, pay our karmas, and self-realize our being, now that we have the tools to do so. And not having to go, once again, through this whole process. The first Dante's circle is the submerged sphere of the moon. This circle is subject to 96 laws. This region is called limbo. It is the hall of hell. It belongs to the second dimension of nature, and is formed by all the caves of the planet united astrally. In this circle are all the disembodied who have not exhausted their 108 existences yet. Here they recap the existence that has just passed, while they wait for their next return to the physical plane. All the inhabitants of this region continue doing the same things they did in the physical world. Everyone walks with the consciousness asleep. We also find here all incarnated human beings who don't possess solar bodies. When we sleep, we go to limbo or lunar astral, since in this circle are all those who have not been baptized. Sincerely mistaken people who believe that liberation was possible without the need for sexual magic. This is the circle of the lazy. Here are all the human beings who did not transmute the seminal waters. The second Dante's circle is the submerged sphere of Mercury. This circle is subject to 192 laws. There we feel the hurricane wind of Mercury, a certain fatal air element. The perpetual boiling of those negative passionate forces, which originate the astral tides. This is a region where human understanding does not work, since everyone here is driven by their instinctive fornicating urges. This is a world of brutal instincts where lasciviousness is mixed with the impetus of violence. Here we find all the fornicators, who enjoy extracting the sacred sperm from their organism. They cohabit incessantly, and hate to death everything that tastes like chastity. Millions of human creatures live here, with the abominable kunda buffer organ fully developed. Those who enter this circle have no possibility of return. Although from time to time, although the truth is very rarely, the masters who work here can help those who truly sincerely repent. Those who at that point manage to understand that they have erred and awaken in themselves a longing for being are helped, and by mercy the masters give them a new opportunity with a human physical body to try their self-realization. But this is really very rare, since those who pass into that circle usually go self-considering or blaspheming against divinity, but never self-questioning and judging themselves. In addition to that, in that circle they immerses themselves in their fornicating instinct. Fornication and lust are the foundation of the ego that exists. The third Dante's circle is the submerged sphere of Venus. This circle is subject to 384 laws. There is incessant rain, terrible cold, mud, sewage water, rot, etc. Pleasure moves in this circle. Here we find canteens, cabarets, brothels, orgies, and bacchanalia. All this is found in the submerged sphere of Venus. Those who have lived from orgy to orgy, from bar to bar, submerged in the mud of the great feasts, banquets and drunkenness, know very well what it feels like after a night of partying. Many wanting to drown in wine the disastrous state in which they remain, continue along the path of vice, until they reach the total catastrophe of their organism. Because after pleasure always comes pain. In this region, the deceased listen with horror to the terrifying barking of Cerberus, the infernal dog. Symbolic dog that, with its 3 cruel jaws, represents the violent sexual animal passions, Luciferian, out of all control. They're the pleasures of the old Rome of the Caesars, turned into fatal results. All the feasts, the adulterers, the lesbians, the poets of the degenerate, the proud lords of the great feasts, home to gluttons, drunkards, drug addicts, all sexual pleasures, etc. Flattery, praise, applause, sweet words, royal clothing, oaths of love, seductions, caresses, kisses, perfumes, superb dances, comforts, the fascination of places, ostentatious meals were lived in live. Now only the pestilence of the underground world of Venus. After all the pleasures, only tears remain, symbolized by the rain of that horrible region, those pestilential waters of bitterness, and the horrible mud of misery. The fourth Dante's circle is the submerged sphere of the sun. This circle is subject to 768 laws. In the solar hells of planet Earth, we find all the unbalanced, with 2 defined types, the wasteful and the greedy. Waste is as absurd as greed. Here we learn to remain faithful to the balance. The violation of balance brings painful karmic consequences. The prodigal, the wasteful, the one who wastes his money, even though deep down he feels very generous, it is indubitable that he is violating the law. The miser, the one who does not circulate his money, the one who selfishly withholds it improperly beyond what is normal, is harming the community, taking away bread from many people, impoverishing his fellow men. For this reason, he is violating the law of balance. Although the spendthrift apparently does well by circulating money intensively, it is logical that he produces imbalance not only in himself, but also with the general movement of values. This, in the long run, causes tremendous economic damage to the peoples. Prodigals and misers become beggars, and this is proven. It is urgent to cooperate with the law of the eternal trogoauto-egocratic cosmic common, not hinder the economic balance, not harm yourself, not harm others. In hell, desperate, the prodigals and misers blaspheme against the divinity, curse, fight each other, plunge into terrifying despair. Here we also find all the exploiters of bodies and souls, lottery, dice, and card players, priests and hierarchs, mystics who insatiably covet the goods of others. The fifth Dante's circle is the submerged sphere of Mars. This circle is subject to 1,536 laws. It is evident, then, that the fifth submerged region is much coarser than the previous ones. Therefore, the suffering is greater there. In this circle the ironic, furious, arrogant and proud people stand out. Murderers, violent, destroyers, blasphemers who curse, people full of hate and revenge, self-considered people, people who mutually hurt each other, and the wicked who threaten. All these people believe that they are doing very well. No one supposes, even for an instant, that they are walking along the paths of darkness and horror, and that things are going badly. They all feel holy and virtuous. Some desperate eyes flee from other attacking eyes, and they are all parts of the same ego. Each one of the parties flee without consolation, terrified, trying to hide from each of the other parties. Nothing pleasant is for the deceased, trying to flee from themselves, feeling horror of themselves. The conscience of the deceased in the fifth circle comes to know their own wickedness, their own horrors, their unusual violence, the disastrous anger. Consciousness tries to flee from itself, from those horrifying, violent monsters. In the fifth natural infradimension of our planet Earth, it turns out that consciousness faces itself, knows itself, looking at itself with many eyes, from different angles, according to each of itselves. Wallowing in so much mud, fleeing from oneself, feeling terrified of oneself, the I confronted with the I, parts of myself, confronted with myself, is certainly the horror of horrors, the unspeakable, the terror that has no words to be described. The invitation is for us to fully understand that each one of these devil selves carries within it a certain well-defined percentage of our own consciousness. And that we must encourage ourselves to do a conscious and voluntary work for eliminating them from our psyche, so that we free ourselves from their terrible consequences. In the next lecture we will be talking about the next four Dante's circles, where they will be purged of psychological defects of an intellectual nature. Remember that you can leave us any questions that arise in relation to these topics. Until next time.